Now, before I start off with this portion of the video, I want to mention one of my favorite quotes. Spencer Cox of Photography Life once said that photography can be almost limitlessly complex. I want you guys to keep that in mind. Even though these settings can be complicated to understand, even if the compositional fundamentals can be complicated to understand, with enough practice you'll be able to get them in no time. Now, before we start shooting, we need a basic understanding of all those settings and compositional fundamentals. And the settings can be represented by this triangle right here. This is called the exposure triangle, and it includes ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Now, ISO is your camera's sensitivity to light. The lower your ISO, the darker your photo. The higher your ISO, the brighter the photo. You can almost think of it as fake light. But the downside with ISO is that the higher ISO you use, the more grain you allow into that photo. The second setting is called aperture. Aperture also controls the amount of light let into the photo, but it also controls the depth of field. You can think of depth of field as the amount of blur in your photo. And as you can see in this example, the lower your aperture, the more depth of field or blur is shown, and the higher your aperture, the less depth of field or blur is shown. And the third setting is called shutter speed. Shutter speed is how fast your camera takes the photo. And as you can see in this graphic on the right, the 1/500th of a second captures a very still image, and the 1/2 second captures a very blurry image. And this photo on the left is a good example of that. And composition. Composition is how everything is arranged in the photo. And in this photo specifically, this example, it is using the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is the most common compositional rule in photography. The rule of thirds basically states that you compose your subject in one of the thirds of the photo. So you compose it in this thirds, or this thirds. And as I said, it is the most common and basic compositional rule of photography.